Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the dissertation viva of Yeraldine Aldana Gutiérrez. Today, Yeraldine will present her doctoral dissertation titled English Language Teachers' Experiences in Peace Construction from their Coamplified In-betweenness, which showcases her skills, creativity, and dedication to the field of ELT education. We're here to evaluate today the dissertation's merits, provide constructive feedback, and recognize Yeraldine's hard work. We extend our sincere appreciation to the distinguished members of the examination panel, whose rigorous assessment and thoughtful feedback are valuable to the academic process. Dr. Peter Sayer, Dr. Carlo Granados Beltrán, and Dr. Juan Carlos Amador Báquiro are the members of today's examination panel. Each one of you will have 10 minutes for assessment and questions. Let me introduce the panel. Peter Sayer is our international examiner. He is professor of multilingual language education at the Ohio State University. His scholarly work is in applied linguistics and educational sociolinguistics with a focus on language learners in bilingual and ESOL programs. From 2009 to 2017, he collaborated with the Mexican Secretaría de Educación Pública on various projects related to the implementation of the Programa Nacional de Inglés, the National English Program for Public Elementary Schools, and in this capacity, he has worked extensively with schools and teachers throughout Mexico. He has also led workshops and study abroad programs for teachers in Peru, Colombia, and Saudi Arabia. He was a Fulbright Scholar in Mexico during the 2011-2012 period. Dr. Sayer's research interests are reflected in his publications, including one of his most wonderful books, Ambiguities and Tensions in English Language Teaching, Portraits of EFL Teachers as Legitimate Speakers, in New York, 2012. Welcome, Dr. Sayer. Carlo Granados Beltrán is our national examiner. He holds a PhD in education from Universidad Santo Tomás, an MA in British Cultural Studies and ELT from the University of Warwick, and an MA in Applied Linguistics to TEFL from Universidad Distrital. He has been a professor of the language department of the Universidad Central, of the bachelor's degree in Spanish and languages and Spanish and English of the Universidad Pedagógica Nacional, and of the bachelor's degree in modern languages of the Universidad Javeriana. He is also a professor of the research seminars of the master's degree in language teaching at Universidad Pedagógica y Tecnológica de Colombia. He is currently the academic vice-rector of the Institución Universitaria Colombo Americana Única, and his research interests are interculturality, teacher education, and formative research, among others. Welcome, Dr. Granados Beltrán. Our internal examiner is Dr. Juan Carlos Amador. He is professor of the Universidad Distrital Francisco José de Caldas in the Doctorado Interinstitucional en Educación, the Master in Communication and Education, and the Master in Education for Peace. He is a member of the research group Youth, Cultures, and Powers in the research emphasis Communication and Education in Culture. He has a postdoctorate in social sciences, childhood and youth, and a doctorate in education. He recently, just this year, he recently edited the book, Children, Youth, and Education, Debates and Pedagogical Experiences, and he is currently the new director of our program, Doctorado Interinstitucional en Educación. Welcome, Dr. Amador. Let's also recognize the contributions of Dr. Carmen Helena Guerrero, the dissertation advisor, whose guidance and supervision had been instrumental in bringing this research process to success. Carmen Helena Guerrero holds a PhD in second language acquisition and teaching and a master's in second language acquisition and teaching from the University of Arizona, and a master in applied linguistics in English language teaching from Universidad Distrital Francisco José de Caldas. She's the director of the research group Stupoli. Her research interests are in the area of critical discourse analysis, critical pedagogy, teacher training, and educational policies. She's also the director of the Master in Communication and Education right now. As we start this important milestone, I would like to introduce Yeraldine Aldana, and I would like to highlight some key aspects of her academic journey. At different academic events, Yeraldine has stated, "A colleague told me that applied linguistics to English language teacher is not connected to peace construction because the latter belongs to social sciences and history. This precisely has ignited the wish to understand the complex connections between language teaching and peace education." Geraldine has a master's in applied linguistics to Spanish as a foreign language. She has also published extensively. I would like to highlight the articles Possible Impossibilities of Peace Construction in ELT, Profiling the Field, published in 2021, and also the article Amplifying English Language Teachers' In-betweenness of Their Experiences in Peace Construction, published in 2024. Let's get started and see the innovative work Yeraldine Aldana has developed. Yeraldine, just a heads up, I'll be keeping track of the time during the Viva. You will have 30 minutes for the defense, and I will let you know when you have 10 minutes left so you can wrap up. And also, after the examiners made their interventions, you will have up to 30 minutes to answer their comments or questions. Please welcome Yeraldine.
Good morning for everybody. Thank you very much for coming here and sharing with me your moment, your time. So firstly, I would like to introduce myself, taking into account the strategy that appeared later. So let me tell you that I'm a Christian woman, I'm a mestiza woman, I'm a victim of different types of conflict in my family as well, direct victims. She's my grandma, some of my cousins were disappeared too, because of this direct violence. I'm a English language teacher educator. I'm also a resilient doctoranda. And of course, this is something that is new in my self-introduction in here, my locus of enunciation. I'm a neurological patient since I was 14 years old. And I'm not embarrassed because of that. This represents these different silencings I have experienced so far because of these different types of beings. Let's continue with this. There is a beautiful butterfly that reflects and represents our transformation throughout this inquiry per se. So this is titled English Language Teachers' Experiences in Peace Construction from their Coamplified In-betweenness. This is my acknowledgement for these very important beings in this particular study. Of course, from my spirituality, Jesus Christ, Dr. Carmen, Helena, and of course, the teachers collaborating in this particular inquiry. Ladi, March, sometimes Sadar, Miyuli, Priscilla, and Ubu. For presenting this particular inquiry, I would like you to move throughout an atelier. An artisan atelier, by the way. So let's get into this atelier. And we have, thank you very much, Professor Granados, by the way, because this map reflects our tour throughout this atelier. So we have different rooms where we are going to talk about different types of decisions in this inquiry. Let's start talking about our first very important anteroom, antesala. We are going to talk about this carving. In this carving, which is related to this particular problematization, we were, let's say, reshaping what was taken for granted. That's why I'm talking about carving in that way, as problematizing. when exploring different types of scenarios, talking to different English language teachers to actually construct peace, and they were really interested, we are expressing that English, and we crafted that English language teachers may differently experience peace construction in contexts where modern peace mechanisms, that is, instrumental, silencing, objectifying, dichotomic, universal, endure. This is our problem crafted. And it's very important to clarify that this problematization as a crafting process had different transformations. This was fluctuating. And then for this particular atelier, I combined two important metaphors to account for it, to talk about it. In terms of a praise tree in 2018, where it started, and of course, a combination of these different three parts to the multifaceted lens of peace, where we can identify places such as the dual peace town, referring to those very formal or first space we have in order to talk about peace construction. And then, of course, the multifaceted lens of peace, where we can identify diversities and, of course, those unseen and unheard experiences of English language teachers who actually construct peace in different territories. As a result, we have a pair of, let's say, curiosities in order to talk about our research questions. They don't have hierarchies. They are just questions. And they say, what do English language teachers experience peace construction from our small voices? The corresponding objective is the following: to co-amplify English language teachers' experiences in peace construction from our small voices. The second one says, how does co-amplifying English language teachers' experiences in peace construction reshape these inquiries' decisions? And the corresponding objective is the following: to reshape these inquiries' decisions while co-amplifying English language teachers' experiences in peace construction. Both of them are quite connected. I mean, the first question in relation to the second one. In here, let's move now to a very important room we have in which we are weaving different threads, conceptual threads, as I prefer to call them. ¿Qué pasa? Cuando nosotros tejemos, estamos conectando una experiencia estética también a la hora del tejido. Cuando empecé con esto del tejer, aprendí a tejer realmente con este trabajo. Antes no tenía ni idea de qué era eso, y para hablar de tejer hay que llevarlo a su materialidad. Aprendí a tejer y entendí, qué pena, estoy emocionada, la importancia del tejer ideas, del tejer conceptos. Let's move in there very quickly. We have different materials, we have different resources, tools we have in order to weave different types of ideas and concepts, resources in here, epistemological resources. But first, I would like to read this for understanding even more what comes next. Be aware of cliches, because they can easily become violent conventions. We need to be aware of what we are doing when we are producing theoretical perspectives as well. So we are weaving conceptual threads then. From, in this particular inquiry, this epistemological positioning at first also fluctuated. In this case, I'm positioning myself from decolonial postures, critically nuanced, okay? And from that perspective, from that posture, this is not only a perspective indeed. We have, well, in this case, I tried to weave different threads, multidisciplinarily speaking, and also from inter and transdisciplinary dialogues, because peace is not a concern only for just one discipline. I explored, for example, in these peace studies, by the way, theological perspectives, as you can see here, historical perspectives, philosophical perspectives. We have anthropological perspectives. We also have, in this case, we have gnosiological perspectives again. We have in Phillips, we have that understanding around that carving about peace in terms of social movements, which well, contributed a lot for this study. And of course, and this is really connected to our field of knowledge, we have peace linguistics as a very important fabric created in this particular inquiry. So we have the combination of, or the role of language in the process of building up different types of relationships, including those violence-driven and peace-driven relationships, because we can code violence, we can code peace. Nosotros, el uso del lenguaje codifica las violencias y los conflictos también. Son acciones, pero las podemos enunciar y podemos prevenir los conflictos a través de un uso particular del lenguaje. In this particular weaving, for example, thanks to Professor Carmen, well, I developed a second moment for revising what has been done in relation to peace linguistics, peace education, well, the different ways we can manifest peace interests. And of course, we have noticed that in terms of the transformations in relation to the first moment of this revision is that we have more undergraduate studies concerned with peace construction, with peace concerns, with peace interests. Peace linguistics, nonetheless, is a little bit less studied explicitly, but implicitly it has been raising the interest among our students in the graduate program and in the postgraduate programs too. And I would like to talk about and underscore the role of some programs in our country, such as Bilingualism for Peace Project. En la Universidad de Córdoba tenemos este proyecto. Hemos tenido este proyecto y también The Commission of Truth en la universidad, por ejemplo, o la UPTC en nuestro país. And this fabric has been named Peace Construction as Multifaceted Weaved Threads. Let's talk about experiences, a very interesting concept. This inquiry is really committed from the very beginning. Experiences in the plural form, by the way. So we have different positivist perspectives and of course constructivist perspectives around experiences. However, let's say carve as well and weave the idea that experiences are equivalent to situations. Rees, for example, consider that experiences have a unit that is the situation. But this is not the experience per se, for example. Pennycook talks about different types of experiences in this renewed text about critical applied linguistics, in the sense that we are not only objectifying experiences for just describing them, but we can also learn from them, and even when we are living them, we are also creating them simultaneously. Okay, so experiences go beyond these externalities indeed. Estas externalidades que han sido tan marcadas a la hora del abordaje de las experiencias. La Rosa considera, por ejemplo, la Rosa 2006 incluso, gracias profesor Amador por eso. La Rosa considers that experiences, the place of experiences is ourselves. El lugar de las experiencias también es nuestros cuerpos, no están ahí afuera nomás. And the most important thing is to explore, for example, these interactions between externalities and internalities when addressing experiences. We have Suárez and Bossert, ellos son algunos de los referentes que he tenido en cuenta también para, en la research-based literature, encontrar qué se ha hecho sobre las experiencias. De manera muy interesante, interestingly, I found that voices are quite relational to the concept of experiences. So Yuha, for example, supports the idea that we have small voices. Small voices are the ones that coexist, in fact, with the noise of the dominant voice as well. But we are coexisting with that one. You see, and UHA considers that and addresses, acknowledges the political force, the political power of these small voices too. Esto quiere decir que porque sean voces pequeñas, no quiere decir que primero sean inexistentes o que no las tengamos. Bueno, tenemos acá unas referencias. Santos, Freire, they are also referring to voices of the oppressed, the voices of the marginalized, the coexistence with the voice, the dominant voice in the the same space, the importance of developing this embodied hearing to get into the places of those oppressed voices, to be able to listen to them. Porque de hecho la escucha es también una actitud. Eso también lo aprendimos acá. Desde este momento ya hemos, digamos, avanzado en diferentes tipos de tejeres, pero gracias también al trasegar, a esta, digamos, al recorrer, a este tour a través de todo este trabajo. In the below section, we have different works concerned with voices and experiences as well. There are some of them which are not connecting voices and experiences explicitly, so we have a really interesting gap to fill that. So we have, in other words, my very dear audience, the importance of moving to this interesting poster season in our ateliers tour. Es momento de que nos encontremos con esta, aceptar, nos vayamos a este poster station. ¿Para qué? Para conocer a nuestros queridísimos, primero, invitados de este trabajo, segundo, colaboradores, y como vamos a ver más adelante, amigos. They are my friends with the Z at the end. And let me introduce them very quickly. There were 7 professors in different Colombian territories. We have Ladi, March. Let's read some of them, or one of them, in order to have an idea, to remember them, just because of issues of time as well. And the way they decided to not only rename themselves, but also self-introduce in this particular poster. So we have, let's listen to Priscilla, or sometimes self-introduced herself in that way. Woman of small stature, but great in hope. Bachelor in modern languages such as English, specialist in humans development and educational rights, close to the indigenous communities of the Colombian Caribbean coast. I'm an English language teacher and a counselor at an educational institution now. I'm a sensitive poet. I have worked for students who are victims of violence, some of them more subtle than others. There are more direct, such as armed conflict. The way I could, thanks to God, get into this contact was particularly academically and referred contact. Nos vamos otra vez. Listo. A ver. Sí, a la anterior. ¿Me ayudas? Gracias. In other words, my very beautiful audience, we have a weaving because experiences, voices, piece construction are interlaced. Let's move to the other room. This is a toolbox. From now on, you may think, well, you can just wrap up this toolbox, but these particular decisions, firstly called methodological decisions. Then in the doctoral program, I realized there were also methodological tensions, and throughout the path, they became these who-how decisions. So they are part of the answer of the second question, by the way. We realized about that at the end. So from this on, it's quite important to realize that the second question is answered. That's why we have in here the question: how does co-amplifying English language teachers' experiences in piece construction reshape this inquiry's decision? And in this case, we have fluctuation. Fluctuation is very important to answer as well this question. We have in here that both non-subjects and subjects per se, or knowers and non-subjects, were the firstly and preliminary roles we played in this particular study in order to make these different who-how decisions to emerge as co-creation and also as part of fluctuation. Who-how decisions then. ¿Por qué será who-how decisions? Eso al inicio me pareció muy interesante porque esta fue la forma de algo que decimos en inglés, signalizing rehumanization. In this particular inquiry, we are calling for rehumanization and not merely humanization. So we have, we were, in other words, carving, esto es una gubia, lo que ustedes ven allí en la parte superior, es una gubia con lo que nosotros, de nuevo, we reshape these different types of darker and very hard sides of Western modernity. In particular within qualitative research. But this also allowed us to move to something that we can understand as creation or crafting. Entonces, esto de creación, ¿qué hace? Genera un crack en cuanto a lo que respondemos como ahora, ¿qué vamos a hacer ahora? ¿Cómo llevamos a cabo? ¿Cómo desarrollamos una investigación? El hecho de problematizarla, reformularla, in other words, carving these qualitative research assumptions makes us crack trivial or taking for granted ways of doing research. So let's hammer a little bit some of these particular assumptions, for example, and the role of creation herein. What is the result of that? We have the co-amplifying. We are not only collecting data, but we are, for example, co-constructing knowledges. We are co-amplifying as fluctuation, as rehumanization, and for what for? For reshaping this simultaneously. This is a very interesting and very important decision in order to share power. We signalized sharing of power through this concept of the baton. En una de las clases del doctorado mencionaba que incluso la manera en la que nosotros compartíamos el poder se estaba codificando como la batuta. La batuta. Our shared baton, our shared power decisions, in other words, our shared power. And in other words, we were orchestrating our amplification. Miren que esto es interesante. Pronto en las preguntas puedo pues especificar aún más esta situación del orquestar amplificaciones. And in this case, it's very important to co-construct knowledges, as Santos de Souza also mentioned. I adhere to that perspective. As a result, and throughout this tour and this path, by the way, we created as the result of this co-amplification, what we have as a result in our inquiry decisions is, like, let's say, embraced and gathered, weaved as otherwise intuitive undoings. There is some background of this otherwise intuitive undoings in terms of the otherwise intuitive approach. Resulta que en el camino construimos esto de que llamamos otherwise intuitive approach, pero en el camino justamente no solo se pluraliza, sino que también le añadimos algo allí que es clave. And it is our intuitive knowledges, our intuition, our perception of our realities from intuitiveness. Okay, so we have, in other words, paying attention to something that is called relationalities. What about this human orders, assuming human orders and chaos as part of our relationalities? This allowed us to resignify messiness, systematization, and even co-construction. Miren que esto de asumir de manera distinta los human orders and human chaos nos permite hablar de algo que llamamos relacionalidad en plural, para construir algo que se llama otherwise intuitive undoings, como dice ahí en plural. Vámonos con esta caja de herramientas, entonces, como un ejemplo de cómo se practica, a practical realization of one of those otherwise intuitive undoings. We have moved from multimodal encounters to multimodal encounterings, and not for a capricious reason, but it also has some, let's say, background and supporting ideas to talk about it. Firstly, we have multidirectional alternately actions to describe these multimodal encounters transiting to multimodal encounterings. ¿Cómo es que algo pasa? ¿Qué es un sustantivo y cómo se vuelve, cómo se le añade este ing? Porque la acción en nuestros encuentros nos permitió relacionarnos de manera que había una agencia dentro de los encuentros, hacíamos cosas, no solamente era una entidad, como desde la filosofía del lenguaje se entiende un sustantivo, encounters, pasemos encontrándonos. Y el origen de por qué lo llamamos encuentro también es interesante, por si me lo quieren preguntar. Por otro lado, we have these communication relationships remolded. Recordemos que estamos en un taller artesanal. Cuando nosotros remoldeamos unas relaciones comunicativas a la hora de co-construir conocimientos, pues definitivamente hay otro tipo de relacionalidad, hay otro tipo de reacciones. Nosotros podíamos replicarnos, interrumpirnos, como hace parte de, como tal, una interacción humana de la vida real. And we could, let's say, pay attention to what was happening there in order to make decisions for further encounterings. That's why they were remolded constantly. So closeness, horizontality, solidarity are also part of these tenets. I'm talking about the tenets constitutive to these multimodal encounterings. The multimodality is not a multimedia option. Lo multimedia puede estar dentro de lo multimodal, pero la multimodalidad no puede reducirse al aspecto de multimedia. Todos estos encuentros se realizaron dentro de la parte de lo de la pandemia, la verdad. Entonces sí hubo multimedia, pero no se reduce esto a lo multimodal. Lo multimodal, de acuerdo con Juan Carlos Amador, entendí justamente que la multimodalidad, multimodality is a semiotic convergence. Es una convergencia semiótica. Entonces, esto hace que el lenguaje alfanumérico no sea el único a través del cual nosotros co-construimos conocimientos. Así que la imagen, el color, la forma también pueden ayudarnos. En estos encuentros, nosotros intercambiábamos imágenes, nosotros las creábamos, nosotros nos reíamos. Nosotros como cuerpo somos también un texto multimodal. Okay, so we have commitment to rapport in these encounterings, and that's why we have also the ing form. This commitment to rapport made our encounterings effectively comfortable, which is also one of the preliminary characteristics of these encounters herein. We are committing to our relationships, this relational accountability, by the way, as an ethical decision. And we also have as I was telling you before, we used already existing materials. And I have an example with Lari, pero no me apareció el enlace. Bueno, entonces vamos a ver algo también aquí, que es clave. Nuestros encuentros se extendieron a algo que al inicio yo mencionaba que quería pues utilizar la investigación narrativa. In narrative inquiry constitutes a very important resource in qualitative research because we are talking about the narrative turn, different from the interpretive turn and the positivist turn, the normative turn. In this case, I used from narrative inquiry, I took into account restoring. And it was also like part of the follow-up, let's say, reflexivities upon this, because throughout the path, we were participating in 3 different scenarios with these friends. We were in a radio station together. We were in a colloquium organized by the doctoral program. And we were also in an academic event organized by Universidad Minuto de Dios. Estuvimos allí como co-researchers, friends, collaborators, y hablando de este proyecto y de nuestras experiencias. Así es como la coamplificación se dio también. We were in different types of scenarios for avoiding, let's say, some extractivist practices with this type of studies that include teachers, but sometimes just for objectifying purposes. And of course, This is, no sé si tengamos tiempo de ver, hice un videoclip de los 3 momentos en nuestros 3 escenarios. ¿Sí? No, creo que no hay tiempo, ¿cierto? Bueno, entonces este era un ejemplo también de con el video. This is a multimodal encountering with Ladi. For your suggestions, my very dear jurors, to clarify or to give an example of an encountering with her. We were greeting each other, we were connecting our lives, what has happened lately. We were exchanging some information related to our particular everyday life experiences in terms of peace construction. She wrote in here a short film. We saw this together. We were talking about this video from intuitive heuristics. This co-interpretation about this video, she suggested because she had the button in that particular encountering. So we were making decisions regarding how we were going to take advantage of this video clip, of this short film, and we creatively created a collective collage, but especially a drawing. Hicimos un dibujo las dos al mismo tiempo que reflexionábamos sobre nuestras experiencias desde este cortometraje, this short film. And then it's very important to move through from this example we couldn't see, especially to what firstly was climax knowledges, but because of this very artisanal and art-based activities, actions are becoming as artists throughout our lives, and also in this particular inquiry, those knowledges shifted to handicrafts. They are not only climax knowledges, but also climax handicrafts. Let's open the doors, please. Here we have otherwise intuitive undoings. As part of this otherwise intuitive undoings, we had that multimodal encounterings were not only for co-construction of knowledges, no solamente los encuentros para co-construir conocimientos, sino también para hacer algo que 10 minutes. Bueno, estos son algunos de los otras respuestas a la segunda pregunta de investigación. Further answers to the second question. Further answers to the second question. Examples. And I would like to mention that part of our decisions in otherwise intuitive undoings to retrieve our rapport and to co-amplify our knowledges was a short multimodal book, is this one. And we have different knowledges in order to answer one of the questions related to our co-amplification. In these experiences, we realized we were crafting an in-betweenness. Unos terceros espacios que nosotros estábamos experimentando y a la vez creando, viviendo, a la hora de construir propuestas relacionadas con paz. So again, we have this question there in order to remind you of this one. And this is a very important statement that wraps for what we are going to talk about later. English language teachers as friends co-amplified third spaces or in-betweenness, refracted their pluridimensional experiences in peace construction and qualitative research, as we could see before. In this in-betweenness, which is really colorful, we have that we created something as part of this, let's say, co-making resenses. We have that some spiritual sensing thinking, or what is also expressed as sensing knowing, or sentipensar o sentipensante, con base en el señor Falsborda y otras formas de entenderlo y por ende enunciarlo. Fue lo que nosotros hemos identificado acá y co-construido o co-amplificado. Vamos a ver solamente por tiempo, digamos, esta y otra partecita de la segunda estación. Let's move to the opening station of this particular handicrafts exhibition. So we have in here two roles, two body selves of these English language teachers as experiencing becoming peace constructors or peace constructors. Let's see an example. In this particular opening station, we can perceive that the tension was resignified, of course, as constitutive of these roles in this case, but we can in here see how others is showing, is displaying this connection between what is this his uncomfort place and role to be only an instructor, and then the interest for him to become a peace constructor, but in terms of how he could manage the connection of these very formal policies, these very formal documents to produce peace construction in his particular environment. But also, in other words, the possibilities he had as alternatives to this particular situation, as to be freer, to feel freer, and as a creator or a constructor. Let's pay attention to these two words, creator or constructor, because even when we have peace instructors and peace constructors as a tension, we have also an embedded subtension on the right part. We have the tension between creator and constructor. Es muy interesante ver cómo es que el creador, el constructor, o los dos al mismo tiempo. Revisemos acá algo. We have a transformed sensing thinking about tensions. They were not only something to deny, narrow, or make invisible, but they were productive. Miren que estas tensiones que vive el profesor no lo bloquean. Él dice, quiero hacer esto y voy a producir esto, porque las tensiones se vuelven una fuente de productividad, de producción. No lo llamemos productividad, eso es muy empresa. Más producción, más creación. I would like to give you an example of the middle station. This middle station of these are, well, handicraft exhibitions, involved a myriad of different body selves, and of course, their corresponding experiences or dimensions, as they are pluridimensional. Let's see, for example, we have popular educators, we have spiritual beings. Let's pay attention to the vulnerable human beings. Desde nuestras vulnerabilidades, nosotros también construimos paces que son relevantes. Nuestras vulnerabilidades también nos permiten construir conocimientos y co-construirlos y remoldearlos y tejerlos, por ejemplo. We have an example in here that is quite connected to Ladi's sensitivity as well, Ubu's voice and Ladi's sensitivities as political decisions. Our vulnerabilities allow us to make political decisions and also our emotions. Miren que lo que se cree que es débil para las academias modernas, porque solo la razón es la que es fuerte. Las emocionalidades, porque tenemos derecho a ser humanos, a ser sujetos espirituales. Eso también nos permite co-construir conocimientos, nos constituyen incluso lo que no tenemos el tiempo, pero son fuerzas. En este trabajo se entendió como que hay unas fuerzas detrás de estos movimientos. Si se dieron cuenta en la anterior diapositiva, digamos, en este caso, estas figuritas, los rostros de estos profesores, se empezaron a mover en este in-betweenness, porque justamente estos cuerpos, en todo el sentido de la palabra, neurológicos o cognitivos, especialmente intelectuales, emocionales, espirituales, materializados, porque incluso nuestro cuerpo también es materia. Nosotros nos enfermamos. Todo esto también nos puede mover. ¿Y mover para qué? Para construir paz también. Okay, so we have in here, for example, whose voice is talking about this. We have, according to some authors, some negative emotions to be even avoided or just set aside or invisibilized. Panic, so loneliness, bitterness. In this particular case, this voice is talking about this frustration when constructing peace and communicating this to some colleagues. But this didn't stop her to do that as well. In the case of lady sensitivity and as a political decision, we have, she told us that she was in a context where her students were suffering different types of conflict-related situations. And I mean, not all teachers perhaps experience those very difficult sociocultural situations. We experienced them differently. She experienced that situation, that experience as a suffering one. Ella desarrolla también esta empatía encarnada, como nos enseña sometimes, de ponerse incluso en la piel de sus estudiantes. Ya no es solamente 2 minutos. Después les cuento eso, lean el artículo. Estoy avanzando muy rápido, pero digamos, ya hablé de esto, me parece genial que nos hayamos adelantado. Este era un ejemplo justamente de esa fuerza de cambio que nos mueve a algunos profesores. Algunas de estas fuerzas se explicaron todas ellas allí en el texto, se complementaron también. Hoy quería hablar de esta fuerza de cambio. Moving throughout an in-betweenness does not occur just because. We realize that there are forces that move our body selves. And among those, we have a force of change. Priscilla's voice is very important here, because she's talking about herself as a coach of life. Esto de tener these changes in terms of, or these wishes to change a particular difficult situation was what moved her. And she acknowledged herself in that particular movement as a coach of life. In the case of others' voice, he acknowledged himself as a social leader because what moved him was this force of change in order to transform these unjust situations, sociopolitically and socioeconomically speaking, of his students. Finally, we closed this particular atelier, leaving, of course, the doors slightly open, with a tribute to peace and a praise to love. No vamos a concluir esto con reiterar lo que ya dijimos, vamos a concluirlo con un tributo a la paz. ¿Cómo es que elogiamos el amor? Desde esto que hicimos con mis grandes amigos, que es lo que mejor puedo rescatar de todo esto, esta amistad tan linda que se generó con ellos. Tenemos, voy a mostrarles para que lo recuerden. Y como recuerden, un elogio al amor y un tributo a la paz. Acá encierro, I'm connecting different types of knowledges crafted in here in terms of the methodological, let's say, contributions and the theoretical contributions. Thank you very much. This is some clay. Tenemos más arcilla que amasar. Me gusta siempre dar cuenta como tal de las sugerencias para futuras investigaciones. Esto es una maña que tengo desde el pregrado a través de la construcción de preguntas. Estas son preguntas para amasar y que ustedes, si quieren continuar este trabajo, lo puedan hacer desde allí. Gracias.
Okay, thank you so much, Yeraldine, for your presentation and very interesting exposition. This is the moment in which the panel of examiners will have the chance to give feedback, express some thoughts, and also ask questions. As it is customary in our program, in the first place, we will have our international examiner, Dr. Peter Sayer. Peter, you had 10 minutes for your feedback, thoughts, and questions for Yeraldine. After that, we will continue with Dr. Granados and then Dr. Amador, and you will have up to 30 minutes to answer their concerns. So, Dr. Peter Sayer.
Hi, good morning. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes,
Yeraldine,
sir.
can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Great. Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to participate. Thanks for the invitation to collaborate with you and the chance to read your work here. It was from my perspective, reading it here from Ohio, really interesting to hear about the efforts that you all are doing there in Colombia towards peace construction and the role that you see of English teachers to contributing towards that. So I really appreciate the opportunity to read the work and learn about what you're all doing there. And I just want to say congratulations, felicidades for this important contribution. I think, Yeraldine, that I think I put in my what do you call it, the dictamen or my evaluation there, that I found your dissertation both very refreshing because it's just very, very different than 99% of the dissertations that I read. And so I thought that the approach there and the way that you were really challenging us who are kind of trained to think and write in a very conventional doctoral thesis kind of way, that you were really challenging us to kind of think outside the box. So I found that very refreshing, but also, like, for me as a reader, very, very difficult at the same time. I think you were sort of demanding a lot from your reader in terms of trying to, approach the work differently. So I want to say both, great job for being for presenting something that's just so original, but also maybe, I guess my questions are here to kind of help me understand, again, somebody who's approaching it from, I guess, a much more traditional academic sense of what an empirical study, the parts that it lays out. Maybe my questions are sort of just more towards that, right, of helping it kind of try to fit it into my own schema. So I wanted to ask you about a few things about the analysis and some of your findings, which, again, I thought the chapter 5 was very strong, and I really enjoyed reading chapter 5. But let me ask you first of all about, and I saw that you'd addressed some of these points in your revisions there. So, maybe if you want to point us back to the things that you revised. I saw that you added an appendix there, which I thought was really, really helpful to kind of help us, at least help me, kind of connect some of the themes that you'd done from your analysis back to what you were discussing and presenting in the findings in discussion. But I guess my first question then, Yeraldine, is about the claim of using grounded theory, because of course grounded theory is this idea that we sort of we approach our work from I guess, kind of a theoretically agnostic position, and that we're building the theory from the data. Whereas I wasn't convinced that that's what you'd actually done, because again, you gave us many, many pages of your own sort of you go into discussions of your own epistemological stance and things like that. So it seems like you're taking a very you're taking a very strong what I would characterize, maybe you tell me if this isn't right, but what I would characterize as sort of a radical humanist post-structural approach, which is already there, which is the sort of the theoretical framework and the epistemological stance that you bring to your work. But then to call it grounded theory and say that you're starting from sort of an atheoretical position and you're really building the theory out of that, which is what grounded theory claims to do, that seemed a little disingenuous to me. So maybe I guess that's my first question. How do you think about your own theoretical starting point and then the use of grounded theory in your work?
May I answer now?
Yes, please. Thank you. Sorry, that was a very long question. I apologize.
I just want to go back to the dynamics of this. So we're going to listen to the three examiners, their comments and questions. And after that, Yeraldine is going to have 30 minutes to wrap up answering all of you guys at the same time.
Oh, got it. Sorry. Yeah, this is the different format for me. So sorry, should I lay out the questions then, and then Yeraldine, you're going to answer them? Is that how it works? Or sorry, this is a little different dynamic than what we usually use for our defenses. So is it a question answer thing then, or do I just post the questions and then we come back?
You post all the questions.
Okay.
And then I post all the questions and the other tutor, and then Yeraldine takes half an hour to wrap up all the questions that we had.
Sorry, I misunderstood the format then. So I guess there's one question, Yeraldine. Put that in your notes, and I guess when you come back to the answer time. My second question is I guess kind of just to help me as well understand, there was some points too where, again, the writing shifted between, different voices, which I thought, again, was great. You're presenting the voices and the stories of your participants, and kind of, as you were talking about, weaving them through, and you're presenting these different metaphors. But I wanted to go to a specific place in the thesis. I'm on page 127. It's excerpt. You present excerpt 5.10 and 5.11, which presents the voices of Adar and Ubu and sometimes. And then beneath that, you present your own sort of take on that. It says here, in addition, a struggle stands out in language teachers' experiences with a modern academy that privileges an anthropocentric secular rational subject. This type of academist enacts a canonical separation between science, art, and religion. This belief, and you go on there. I guess what I would like to do is, can you talk me through that, and just kind of maybe try to say that for me in more plain language, like what is the point here and what is the takeaway? Because I found myself in several points in the thesis here, having to kind of go back and read and reread those things, and not coming away 100% sure of what exactly it meant. And so again, I just took this one as an example, but I guess that's sort of my question then is, taking this one example there on the bottom of page 127, if you could just maybe talk me through that and explain, and maybe in more plain language, what exactly you mean by that. So that would be question number 2. Question number 3. Question number 3 was, it had to do with one of the critiques that I'd put in my evaluation there, and it was about some of the terms and concepts you used. And so, when I'm working with doctoral students, and particularly when, we're trying to figure out, like, we're talking about research design, and how do you take your research questions, and particularly when we're trying to be very careful about, parsing the research questions and really trying to put our fingers on what exactly is the thing that you're trying to study here, right? And again, thinking of it in an empirical sense, the thing that you're trying to measure, not exactly in, necessarily in the quantitative sense, of course, but qualitatively at least, what is the thing that we're trying to measure? And in order to be able to measure, qualitatively, that, of course, you have to, identify your object of study, look at the unit of analysis and how you're going to operationalize that. And so when I, for example, see things like this idea of co-amplifying as a central concept in the dissertation, I'm like, okay, co-amplifying, that I guess I kind of know what that means, but I want to know, like, how you define it, and in the way that you define it, how is that then operationalized in the dissertation? Again, by operationalize, I mean, like, how do you measure it? How do you know co-amplifying when you see it in the data, right? And so I guess that would be a question. And I had a few other, you saw in the evaluation there, I really loved the terms and the metaphors that you were invoking, like otherwise intuitive undoings. But again, I wasn't always super sure about what exactly is that, and again, how is she defining it, and how does she know it when she sees it in her data? So I guess that would be the final question that I'm asking, is that, let's take the example of co-amplifying. Can you give us a kind of a concrete definition of co-amplifying, and how do you again, when you were doing your analysis, how did you know co-amplifying when you saw it in the data set there? Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that, and then I'll look forward to hearing your answers when we get to the discussion part.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Sayer, for your comments and your very interesting 3 questions. Now it is the turn for Dr. Granados. Beltrán, welcome, Carlo.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you, Yeraldine, for your presentation. I want to start by congratulating you on taking the risk of subverting the format. I understood what you were trying to do. However, I have some concerns about it as well. And I have a few questions. Some of them are more in terms of the form. They're going to be very direct, and some others are about the content. So I would like to know if you could explain in one sentence what's the difference between signalizing and signaling, relationalities and relations, and friends with S and friends with Z, for example. Well, no, because you already explained encounters and encounters that I understood. The other question that I have is, what are the pedagogical implications of these projects? You know that I'm always concerned about when we do this theoretical sort of work, I always wonder, what are the practical implications? What can I do with this? Or if I teach my undergraduate students, what can I do, or what can I get from this project, from this research? So what are the pedagogical implications that you see in the project? And the other one that I have is, just because I see some connections, but I don't know if you saw them. How would you connect this proposal that you have in terms of methodology and even the way you organize the project with the idea of bricolage proposed by Kinchelo? And another one is, after this very deep work, because I know, and because of what you show and because of what I read, I know it was very profound. How do you understand peace now? And how can teachers become instigators or promoters of peace based on what you found and on these dialogues and collaborations you have with your friends, to honor the term that you used in the project, right? So those are my questions. I still have issues with the complexity of the language, similar to what Professor Sayer was mentioning, because, you know, I have always, it's not only about you, but about decolonial theory and all these theories in general that sometimes are very cryptic and very difficult to understand. So make them more difficult, it seems contradictory to me, right? That's my concern. But I enjoyed a lot reading the project, and I found it very inspiring, like in order to make sort of an innovative kind of communication of what we do in research. So thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Granados, for a very interesting set of questions. Now I would like to invite our local examiner, Dr. Amador. He's going to stand here.
I will speak in Spanish. Muy buenos días. En primer lugar, le quiero dar este saludo de felicitación a Yeraldine por su disertación, por este momento tan importante para nuestros doctorandos. Y pues felicitar también a su directora, la doctora Carmen Helena, por este acompañamiento tan importante que ha realizado a esta investigación y a este producto tan importante que es esta tesis doctoral. Bueno, y un saludo también a quienes nos acompañan en este momento acá en el auditorio, a quienes están aquí por la transmisión y desde luego a los colegas de este panel evaluador, al doctor Peter y al doctor Carlo. Quiero hacer unos comentarios muy breves y algunas preguntas para contribuir a la conversación. Entonces, en primer lugar, quiero resaltar la importancia de este tema. Como ustedes lo saben, nuestro país está intentando construir un tránsito de una violencia sistemática de derechos humanos y de un conflicto armado prolongado a un momento de paz duradera. y ese proceso, si bien tiene mucho que ver con los acuerdos de paz que firma el Estado con los grupos armados, también tiene que ver con las iniciativas que la sociedad civil lleve a cabo para construir paz desde los territorios. Y eso incluye a los profesores y profesoras, quienes en su vida cotidiana, en medio de muchas dificultades, están intentando contribuir a este proceso. Y yo creo que esta tesis, en primer lugar, tiene un compromiso ético y político para hacer visibles estas experiencias, para hacer visibles estos esfuerzos que hacen los maestros por intentar hacer procesos de construcción de paz y procesos de formación que permitan a estas generaciones generar otras posibilidades de futuro. Pero también quiero destacar que esta tesis coloca como protagonistas a los profesores y aquí hay que tener en cuenta que los docentes en nuestro país también han sido víctimas del conflicto. Vale la pena resaltar brevemente un informe que entregó FECODE para el doctor Pider. FECODE es la Federación Colombiana de los Profesores en Colombia, de los Trabajadores de la Educación. Entregó un informe a la Comisión de la Verdad con evidencias muy importantes, señalando que existen más o menos 5.000 profesores asesinados en Colombia en las últimas 3 décadas y otros desaparecidos. Y realmente es un asunto crítico, es un asunto de mucha preocupación, porque pocas veces se habla de los profesores como víctimas del conflicto. En ese sentido, creo yo que aquí colocar a los profesores en el centro, no solamente como sujetos deficitarios, personas que son carentes, sino como sujetos protagonistas que también tienen mucho que aportar, me parece que es otro acierto de esta tesis. Quisiera, digamos, en otro ámbito de discusión, destacar algo que hace Yeraldine como investigadora y que tiene mucho que ver con la apuesta que ha hecho el énfasis desde una perspectiva crítica del sur, y es colocar en diálogo y casi que como en intersección el campo ELT con el campo de Peace Construction y los estudios decoloniales. Es decir, yo me imagino con una suerte de intersección entre estos 3 campos, y no es común porque, como ustedes saben, la educación para la paz generalmente es atribuida a quienes se dedican más a la formación en ciencias sociales o en ética y valores. Entonces, digamos, este diálogo me parece que es muy importante, y justamente destacar allí el concepto de las pequeñas voces. Creo que Yeraldine lo explicó muy bien hoy y lo hace muy bien en su texto. Lo de pequeñas no significa minimizar, ¿no? Sino justamente implica darle fuerza performativa, como ella lo señaló, a aquellas personas, pueblos, grupos que históricamente han estado en la periferia, que históricamente han estado en un lugar subalterno y que, digamos, en medio de esa manera, de esa forma de exclusión y discriminación, pues hay una riqueza de experiencias y saberes que justamente es lo que se devela en este estudio. Por otro lado, hay asuntos formales que también aquí hay que destacar y que no son menores: la consistencia, la coherencia interna del proyecto, la relación entre su problema de investigación, los referentes teóricos y metodológicos, los resultados obtenidos. Y en ese sentido quiero también resaltar la importancia que tiene aquí la apuesta epistemológica y metodológica, porque definitivamente es un desafío, ¿no? En las ciencias sociales, convencionales, hay muchas de estas cosas que no se aceptarían, ¿no? Por ejemplo, hacer una apuesta por co-construir conocimiento entre la investigadora y los participantes. Entonces aquí ya no estaríamos hablando de construir conocimiento sobre los otros, sino con los otros. Y bueno, y creo que esto se sintoniza muy bien con la perspectiva del sentipensar que también se resalta en esta tesis. En la metodología hay cosas muy sugerentes, no me quiero extender, pero digamos también vale la pena aquí resaltar las apuestas figurativas, diría yo, poéticas, que nos propone Yeraldine, desde esta noción del tejido, de los hilos, de las estaciones, de la caja de herramientas, que es una metáfora ya muy utilizada en ciencias sociales, pero creo que aquí se resignifica en esta tesis. Y entonces me parece que eso se resuelve muy bien, que es desafiante, creo yo, que interpela otras formas de investigar muy convencionales. Y para finalizar, quisiera decir que en esta tesis hay unos resultados novedosos, diría yo, en este campo de educación para la paz, en este vínculo con ILT, porque nos muestra justamente el valor performativo que tiene aquí las emociones, lo sensible, incluso aquello que podría ser considerado como vulnerable. Entonces, cómo estos profesores y profesoras desde los territorios construyen paces, haciendo aportes significativos a estos espacios microsociales, con sus propios estudiantes, con las propias comunidades educativas, y creo que eso lo objetiva muy bien esta investigación, lo resalta de manera significativa a través de un lenguaje que por momentos es académico, pero a veces se vuelve poético, y que involucra a la investigadora como parte de este lenguajeo, como diría Miñolo. Entonces, me parece, pues digamos, en términos generales, un gran trabajo, un gran aporte. Quiero felicitar todo esto, y para cerrar y contribuir un poco a la conversación y a las preguntas, quiero presentar dos cuestiones. Por un lado, de qué manera estos resultados de la investigación interpelan aquellas perspectivas del norte global, que especialmente están promovidas por organismos multilaterales, que enfocan ELT Education y la educación para la paz desde una perspectiva de competencias, de estándares, de resultados de aprendizaje, ¿cierto? ¿De qué manera estos resultados cuestionan, interpelan, transgreden ese enfoque que, a mi juicio, bueno, esto lo plantean algunos autores también, termina generando un proceso progresivo de desprofesionalización del profesor y despedagogización de la escuela? ¿Cómo esto podría convertirse en una alternativa y de qué manera toma distancia y genera otras posibilidades de pensar lo educativo y la formación? Y en segundo lugar, me gustaría preguntarte, Yeraldine, de qué manera también esta tesis, estos resultados, nos pueden decir cosas, nos pueden sugerir otros modos de pensar y de llevar a cabo los procesos de formación de maestros, especialmente en el pregrado, desde ELT Education, pero quizás también desde otras áreas del conocimiento, ¿no? Porque estamos en una facultad de educación que pues trabaja con distintas áreas del conocimiento. Incluso hoy en día que se está abriendo camino una ley en el Congreso de la República sobre la vinculación de las normales superiores al sistema educativo de educación superior. Bueno, muchas gracias y reitero la felicitación.
Thank you so much to our very important panel of examiners. Thank you so much, Dr. Sayer, for your wonderful 3 questions. Also, we had 3 questions from Dr. Granados and 2 additional questions from Dr. Amador. Yeraldine, I'm going to give you up to 30 minutes to integrate and elaborate potential answer to all those questions and comments made by the examiners. 30 minutes.
Thank you very much. Firstly, to the 3 of you professors, your comments, your suggestions enriched a lot this particular thesis. In regards to your questions, Professor Peter, of course, well, I would say that I thank a lot the way you have posting here a possible tension between the traditional language to talk about research and the possibilities otherwise we can co-construct. I would say that this can be related to the possible challenges we still have in qualitative research particularly. Because if we develop research, if we craft research, for example, differently, we need to look for different languages as well to name that. So thank you very much for this. And that would be part of one of those questions, one of the answers for one or a pair or two of your questions. In relation to measuring, well, when exploring, when addressing particular, pay attention, everybody, to the word particular. I'm talking about particular experiences. It's very difficult to measure your spiritual experiences, your affective experiences, your physical experiences. So measuring was not pursued herein, even more because overgeneralization is not pursued in the methodological decisions that became the otherwise intuitive undoings. So measuring was not pursued from the very beginning because they were actually, this interest is actually pursued in post-positivist research more connected to quantitative approaches. And this study is not a quantitative one, and even less, well, this is not following methodological decisions from the scientific method. This is part of my stories. Well, at the beginning, and it is something to remark a lot, to my dear jurors, remarked something regarding the way I did, well, this particular atelier was written. For example, the proposal or the idea of including some of my stories at the beginning of each atelier, except in the last one, has to do with the idea that we need to perhaps revisit the way we write and communicate, particularly research, or these possibilities of inquiring with other people. Because research is not only for academic, let's say, scenarios or modern academies. So writing research otherwise is also part of this particular atelier. In fact, well, let's talk about these voices. Let me talk about this. Well, in the meantime, mientras que busco estas voces, mi querido profesor Sayer, let me talk about something in regards to the rational subject in relation to the secular academies. What I mean is that in the case of secular academies and the rationality behind them, it has to do with the fragmentation of our body selves in terms of what the modern academies are expecting English language teachers who construct peace in terms of their proposals, but only and especially from rational knowledges. There seems to be a tendency to unauthorize English language teachers to be both emotional and spiritual. That's why modern academies still need to perhaps a little bit carve their rational driven subjects to be reproduced. And well, in terms of grounded theory, at the beginning of this particular project, in the oral defense of the project, I mentioned that perhaps grounded theory or even narrative inquiry could be options for making, well, for analyzing at a time this data harvested. But throughout the path, I realized that both grounded theory and, for example, narrative inquiry are still framed within rationality to a certain extent. They involved analysis processes, and these ones are connected or lead the researchers towards categorization. This categorization mutilates other ways of being and becoming that are quite visible in the ways we are co-creating knowledges here in terms of the crystallization. Look at here, the other file you received, the co-created book we crystallized with the collaborators and my friends are disclosing our bodies beyond this rationality, mainly concerned, for example, with some categorizing decisions in some studies sometimes. I'm not, let's say, marginalizing or stigmatizing either our possibilities to categorizing in research. I'm just claiming the possibilities to address and relate knowledges differently without producing pain, as I included in one of the stories in that particular chapter about what we call in mainstream research data analysis. So neither grounded theory nor analysis, narrative analysis were per se used in this particular inquiry. They are part of the story because I prefer to, let's say, inform my decisions in these particular inquiries or processes to, let's say, something, to carry out something that has to do with research. A ver, ¿qué otro tenemos por aquí? I would like to remark something regarding, again, my very dear Professor Sayer, in relation to what we actually did with the knowledges co-constructed throughout multimodal encounterings. These ones also served for something we proposed in here as co-making recenses. We have analysis, we have interpretation, but they still are still framed in rational frames. Again, we need to embody those decisions we make in order to approach those knowledges co-constructed in previous stages, for example. And we realized that when we are creating knowledges, we can also co-make recenses. What is going on here in terms of language? This is not a capricious decision to talk about co-making recenses as another category. This is also part of our experiences, embodied experiences throughout this inquiry. Co-making recenses is more, let's say, this is clearer even according to my explorations with more people outside the academy than, for example, talking about even analysis, thematic analysis, by the way, or grounded theory. And this study is for more people than just those in the academy and those perhaps in ELT. I would say that rather than connecting data analysis to grounded theory and thematic analysis, then we were actually co-making recenses and through as well crystallization. Of course, there was one stage, as I told you this story about these co-creating knowledges and co-made knowledges. There is a stage which is this crystallization, as I was telling you before. I guess you received the file as well of this short multimodal book. So thank you very much for this. I would like to connect these ideas around the language with one of the questions, with one of the comments and questions posed by Professor Granados. Thank you very much. These complexities of language. In this case, what I was trying to do is perhaps making language uses more quotidian than producing lots of jargon. The invitation for perhaps researchers in the modern academies is to, let's say, connect ourselves and our languages to quotidian languages, as Silvia Rivera Cusicanqui also proposes. Silvia Rivera señala que hay que criticar esa producción de nuevas categorías. Eso también estoy supremamente de acuerdo. Cuando hablamos de el martillo, martillar nuestros conocimientos, la experiencia que hemos tenido en la vida diaria de usar un martillo hace que esta experiencia de otra persona fuera de la academia también, con respecto al martillar sus pensamientos, sea más cercana que de hablar, por ejemplo, del pluriverso. Yo amo la pluriversalidad desde Boaventura de Sousa Santos. De hecho, lo cito mucho. Me encanta la pluriversalidad. Todo lo que él propone, él me ha inspirado muchísimo. Como ustedes pudieron ver, lo cito bastante. Pero sí siento que los lenguajes tienen que llegar otra vez a la cotidianidad. Así como lo expresa Silvia Rivera. ¿Cuál sería la diferencia entre, what's the difference between perhaps the bricolage and the connections to, let's say, co-making recenses, these proposals related to this particular inquiry in terms of the who-how decisions. The very different has to do with, well, the use, for example, of arts-based principles, decisions, for example, the role of intuitiveness, the uncertain, as I call it, the uncertain intuitiveness in regards to these who-how decisions. The bricolage mainly is quite important. It supported the creation of these who-how decisions, but it fell short when addressing these other possibilities and principles. I would say that, this is a very beautiful question, Professor Granados. The implications of the pedagogical implications of these findings and this overall atelier, well, they have to do with the possibilities of producing piece construction otherwise for creating actually methodological proposals that transcend the use of piece construction as an instrumental content in our curricular proposals. Mis queridísimas estudiantes son testigos de que yo les he dicho mucho que la construcción de paz no se puede reducir a un contenido transmisionista en el aula. La paz es agencia, es acción. La construcción de paz va más allá de una lista de conceptos. La construcción de paz hace parte de la vida diaria y las implicaciones que tiene este trabajo también se refieren a esto. Otra implicación pedagógica tiene que ver con el rol de los profesores, también como lo señala el profesor Amador. El rol de los profesores de inglés, compartir esta preocupación trans e interdisciplinariamente nos hace también agentes con poder para resignificar lo que podemos contribuir a la construcción de paz y de nuevo desinstrumentalizarla. We need to still de-instrumentalize peace construction in the modern academies, and especially when we are educating future languages teachers or even other disciplines, languages or other disciplines teachers. The way we are, well, let's say, using languages, the use of language in here, both Spanish and English in this particular thesis, the use of translanguaging applied there has to do with a peace-driven strategy indeed, because we are claiming the fact that languages and those communities behind can coexist, actually, considering this pluriversality, these pluriversal spaces where we can actually coexist. As part of the, in fact, definition I have carved and I have crafted throughout this particular inquiry as part of a personal decision. Peace constructions have to do with these possibilities to coexistence, for coexistence, and not only, let's say, the imposition of very, let's say, traditional, or let's say, those very instrumentalizing discourses around peace, especially where we have first spaces where these different discourses circulate and they are reproduced in second spaces. And then these teachers are co-authors of resistances in the third spaces. So we can produce peace-driven proposals, alternative peace-driven proposals from a pluriversal perspective. So peace constructions or paces, como lo he mencionado ahorita, implican justamente la apertura. Estoy emocionada, perdón. A estas otras paces y a las otras maneras de construirlas y de vivirlas. No están en el papel únicamente. Y finalmente, voy a contestarte también en español, profesor Amador. Agradezco muchísimo por el valor que le das a este trabajo. Cuando leí tu evaluación, me gustó mucho. Prometí no llorar, pero es que es inevitable hacerlo, profe. Durante todos estos años, este trabajo no paró y tengo testigos de eso, mis compañeros, mis amigos de este trabajo, mi familia, mis sobrinos. Entonces, gracias por valorarlo. La emocionalidad ya no me da pena llorar. Con este trabajo aprendí que la emocionalidad también produce conocimientos. Gracias por valorar la forma de escribir, porque esto también es una propuesta, algo que me parece clave para mis estudiantes. We need to revisit writing research proposals. If we are producing alternatives otherwise, we need to revisit as well the way we are writing and communicating research, because we construct a relationship with our readers. And los resultados interpelan, ¿cómo interpelan los resultados el norte global? Justamente, digamos, yo diría, con toda esta investigación, que la paz, la construcción de paz siempre, en la mayoría de los casos, no voy a sobregeneralizar, en el norte global, en los contextos blanqueados, se le ha entendido como un concepto monolítico. Yo creo que esto interpela esa postura tan blanqueada y monolítica de la construcción de paz en nuestra área y también en otras, en la formación de profesores. Esta perspectiva, esta tendencia a universalizar y por ende esencializar la paz en singular, eso también lo interpela, porque hablamos es de paces, de construcciones de paces. Y cómo interpela estos resultados otras, por ejemplo, digamos, a los otros modos de pensar, nos hace pensar justamente que lo colectivo tiene un valor. El librillo que construimos como resultado también adicional nos enseñó que con construir algo adicional también es un acto de agradecimiento. Hablar de lo colectivo no es simplemente mencionar que tenemos un we o sobreusarlo, como lo dije en la tesis. El sobreusar un we es tan peligroso como el sobreusar un I. Nosotros tenemos que revisar realmente qué implica lo colectivo, y eso también lo interpela de esa manera. Y yo creo que proponer, digamos, metodologías no solo para enseñar en los escenarios de formación de profesores en donde se producen y se enseña cómo investigar, de nuevo, digamos que la relacionalidad con los participantes debe revisarse. Y otra cosa, las posturas éticas. Esto interpela las decisiones éticas dentro de los procesos de investigación cualitativa, al menos para la formación de profesores. Gracias.
Okay, thank you so much, Yeraldine, for such a heartfelt reply to your panel of examiners. I'm gonna request the people present here to step out and leave the auditorium, because we're gonna give our examiners time for their deliberation in private. Since we had one of the examiners present here and the other two are online, we had decided to do the deliberation here right in the auditorium. So I'm gonna leave Peter, Carlo, and our director here, and please leave so that we can give them some privacy for their deliberation. Okay, thank you so much to the panel of examiners. Before we read their final decision, the minutes for this session, I would like to invite Dr. Carmen Helena Guerrero as the dissertation advisor for a few words.
My dear Harold. Good morning still, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this defense. And first of all, I would like to say congratulations, Yeraldine, for achieving this milestone in your professional career. I know it wasn't an easy road, but you did it, and you did it great. And I would like to say that Yeraldine is a very brave woman who have had to fight her neurological situation that she mentioned in her locus of enunciation, and she has dealt with the inconveniences that this medical condition brings to her daily life. Yeraldine is also a brilliant scholar. She is a passionate and fully engaged in all the projects she commits to. She's a very private person, but once she lets you in, you discover her strengths, her values, beliefs, and how sweet and caring she is. As an advisor, it was a joy for me to walk this path along with you, Yeraldine. I felt challenged many times by the power of your ideas, but I also was very enriched by our dialogues. Today marks the closing of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. I can only wish the best in the road ahead for you. And my wish is that the academia nurtures from all that you, Yeraldine, has to offer. Congratulations again, Dr. Yeraldine Aldana.
Thank you so much, Carmen Helena. Now I would like to invite our local examiner, Dr. Amador. He is in charge of reading the minutes for this session or the acta.
Universidad Distrital Francisco José de Caldas, Doctorado Interinstitucional en Educación, Acta de Defensa de Tesis Doctoral, T11-2025. El martes 5 de agosto de 2025, el doctor Peter Seyer, PhD in Language and Literacy, profesor e investigador de Ohio State University, Estados Unidos, por videoconferencia, el doctor Carlo Granados Beltrán, doctor en educación, profesor e investigador de la Institución Universitaria Colombo Americana, Bogotá, por videoconferencia, y Juan Carlos Amador Báquiro, doctor en educación, profesor e investigador del Doctorado Interinstitucional en Educación, sede Universidad Distrital Francisco José de Caldas, presencial, se reunieron como panel evaluador de la tesis doctoral titulada English Language Teachers Experience in Peace Construction from their Coamplified In-betweenness, de autoría de Yeraldine Aldana, dirigida por la doctora Carmen Helena Guerrero, Nieto, profesora del Doctorado Interinstitucional en Educación, sede Universidad Distrital Francisco José de Caldas. Luego de escuchar la defensa de la tesis doctoral en mención, el tribunal otorga la calificación aprobada con distinción. En constancia firman Dr. Peter Seyer, Dr. Carlo Granados y Juan Carlos Amador. Felicitaciones, Yeraldine. Felicitaciones.
So we had a new doctor, Dr. Aldana. Welcome to our academic community. Congratulations to everything that you have done for our program. It has been a privilege to have you as a student in our program. And thank you so much to our wonderful panel of examiners, Dr. Peter Seyer, thank you so much. And greetings from Colombia. Welcome anytime that you want. Thank you, Dr. Carlos Granados. Somos vecinos, así que puedes venir prontito a la Distrital cuando quieras. And thank you so much to our new director of the program, Dr. Juan Amador. And with this excellent news, we finish our session today. Thank you so much to everyone for attending.